What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of High Off the Glass. You know what it is. It's Sunday. We are live, 3119 Hampton Ave, over here on the Southside Overtime Studios. Make it happen. Justin Kick It on the ones and twos. Yo, what's up, y'all? I am here. We are here for another episode of High Off the Glass. Major shout out to everybody who wished me happy birthday last Sunday. It was dope. My birthday was amazing. It felt, man, best birthday I had in years. So just major shout out to y'all for giving me props on that. And I got to go see the Cards play the Yanks, my two favorite teams. Did not think the Yanks would get swept, but I ain't mad at it. I love both of them teams, and I was in the building. But today we have literally a cannabis superhero in the building. When I say that, I am not over-exaggerating. I'm not lying. I am telling you all the truth. This man is Brennan IS. He is basically a cannabis superhero in the Midwest and North America, United States. This is the creator of the Cola Lounge, first ever cannabis lounge in St. Louis. This is the creator of STL Cannabis Club, first ever cannabis club here in the state of Missouri. Want to give a major shout out to Mr. Brennan IS. What up, brother? Welcome to the spot.
Hey,
welcome.
What's up? Thank y'all for having me. I appreciate it.
We gotta be quasi related.
That's Coach. That's Coach Hill, Coach Damon. You guys hear in the background. He is holding down the fort like usual. We got a guest in the house. Mr. Chris, the grower, is in the building. Want to give a major shout out to him. He in here with his Bengals cup. I hope y'all can go back, man. You know what I'm saying? I hope Bengals can. It's not just one and done. Yeah, sure you is. Anyway, if you got any questions today, any comments, if you'd like to call in, 515-599-1687. 515-599-1687. One more time, 515-599-1687. If you'd like to ask myself a question, Mr. England a question, Coach Damon a question, feel free to call in. Yeah, it's a little different since last time you were here, man.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
So.
This is crazy. This is you're the first ever returning guest to never be on the show. You know what I'm saying? It was so crazy because you are literally that. Had this brother on when we were in the basement studios over with Always Forward Media, and technical issues. Show was not able to be aired, and which I was upset about because that was a great ass interview. I got to the nitty gritty on your ass. You know what I'm saying? Right. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna do a
replay of that.
We're gonna do a Cliff Notes version of that because, bro, I'm talking about that interview when I first had this brother. It was an hour and a half. And we ain't got that today. So we're gonna do a Cliff Notes version of that. Brennan, you have been an inspiration to people like me that are involved in cannabis in this industry. You have been you're very vocal in, what you do in this industry, how minorities need to be a part of it. You're involved in Minorities for Medical Marijuana. You're involved in that group, a group that I've long admired and want to be a part of. Give me your origin story, bro, because I know you are from Southern Missouri. Your background is what a lot of people would not expect. Give me a quick synopsis of you, man.
Yeah, definitely. So, I guess the most brief version is that first I'll start with where I am now and who I am in the moment and what I've done here is that. So right now, as you said, I started the St. Louis Cannabis Club and I started the Cola Private Lounge.
Yes, sir.
Also for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. Minorities for Medical Marijuana is the largest minority advocacy organization for the cannabis industry, actually in the world. And we span 3 different countries and over 30 different states. And I'm the representative for Missouri.
Wow.
And with them, it pretty much, my main goals are making sure that specifically the minorities that have been most affected by the war on drugs, black and brown people, have a space in the growing industry and a voice in that industry. And that we get, can I cuss on this show? We get the fuck out of jail for all the reasons that we never should have been there in the first place.
Talk about it, brother.
Right.
Talk about it. Yes, sir. Talk about it.
So so how I got there is that I am from Missouri. Started the beginning of my journey in more of rural white Missouri, and then moved into the South City and for high school, the end of grade school and high school.
What rural area?
South Jefferson County.
Wow.
Yeah,
how was that?
Well, and the synopsis.
Wait a minute. Festus?
Hillsborough specifically.
Hillsborough.
Yeah,
Wow.
and the synopsis, it was Hillsborough is a beautiful place, and you know, in my youth, I really loved a lot of kind of like what the country life had to offer.
Right.
Even though I was reminded all the time that I was different. I was reminded all the time that I was the odd person out, whether it was people trying to be nice or people, you know, trying to be assholes. You know, but in that, I learned a lot about appealing to people's better nature. I learned a lot about people thinking things or making preconceptions maybe about me. And I learned a lot about learning to find love in places that you might not have expected, you know. And so that's really been part of my journey as I've moved into being an activist with the plant, and being an activist for my people, and making sure that everyone has a seat at the table. You know, it's like part of my diverse upbringing has also made it easier for me to have a piece of conversation at a lot of different tables. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I try to use that as much to my advantage as I can. But yeah, so started out there, and then I graduated from it was a magnet school, but from ROTC here on the South Side.
Okay.
Shout out to Cleveland Junior Naval Academy, with the original on South Grand.
Yeah, that was an ROTC school.
Yes.
Yeah, damn right.
Yeah. So also in that, you know, I had military, have that military influence. I've been to Soldan. Oh yeah.
Here we go. High school.
I was on
wars,
drumline. We used to
typical
we
St.
used to
Louis.
smash no Soldan in the drumline competitions. Loved crushing Soldan.
Like I ain't heard that. Act like I didn't hear that.
Used to smash y'all. Nice. Tell it. Tell it, B.
I loved it. No, but so I learned a lot about chain of command.
Yeah.
You know, and I also was on scholarship for
Big
debate.
time.
So I'd actually
Scholarship for
debate.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. That's where you get those skills from.
Yeah. So I was enlisted in the Marines.
Oh.
My sophomore, I guess it was like by the end of my junior year, I was enlisted in the Marines, and my debate coach was trying his damnedest to get me out of the Marines, and he got me an opportunity to audition for a debate scholarship. So I actually got honorably discharged for pursuit of higher education. I swore in and everything. It was 2 months from my ship date, and then my debate scholarship kind of saved my life.
Wow. Now that we did not discuss when you did the show last year. Explain that to me. How does somebody as intelligent as you, with the type of background, I can see from the type of background you have, because that's how the military kind of works. They get people that are, you know, let's just say what it is, poor. They get poor folks in the military. But as smart as you are, what in the hell made you want to do Marines?
Why the Marines?
Well,
right, out of all the branches.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a couple of reasons. And it's funny you said that, because my gunny said almost the same thing, and my recruiter said almost the same thing.
Right.
But there's one of the
But
reasons.
there's be a gang of smart people in the Marines.
Fuck
now.
yeah, no.
Yeah,
but,
like geniuses.
But why would you put yourself in the line of fire like that?
Right,
And
right.
Part of the reasons is that part of the reason was that I was an indecisive young kid. I wanted somebody to tell me what to do, because I wasn't ready to make the decision myself.
Right.
And I had a bunch of people that were telling me that was an easy way for me to make money while I still figured out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And in some ways,
That's the recruiter's line.
True. You know, like part of it is true. It's like
call.
if you find a cush job in the military, like you can better yourself, get an education.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Right.
If you can get one, yes.
Yeah, like you can get up and out.
And you probably scored high as fuck on your ASVAB, didn't you? Yeah, so you could have got one of those. Okay, now I see your game plan.
I qualified for officer school, but I still was going to go in as enlisted.
Better not be no fucking officer. Fuck officers.
See?
For real.
See?
Yes, sir. I'm enlisted, bro. So
Bro,
yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
I can't stand it.
So you're like, why would you do it? It's like, well, part of it is because I was
because of the
raised in
pay.
enough military culture that it's like,
officers,
you gotta have you gotta have respect.
Shout out when I was on the
officer in a minute. E7?
When I was on, no, that's still enlisted. That's not.
I'm just saying.
But major
That's
shout
what I'm saying. They officers make way more than E7s and E8s.
They do. Shout out to this brother that was officer for us when I was on the USS Carl Vinson a good 20-some years ago. This light-skinned brother, bald head, cool as a cucumber. Tried to kept all those young brothers in line. When we had an issue, that dude wasn't even in our department. We would just go to him. We weren't even supposed to go to him, but we went to him because he knew the struggle. You know what I'm saying? So major shout out to him. Okay, so that makes sense with you with military.
Yep. So, I had enough of that whenever it came time for me, In college, I experienced a lot of psychedelics and good weed.
Okay.
Because whenever I first found good weed was my freshman year in high school.
Right.
Whenever I was, or freshman year in college.
Okay.
Whenever I was down in Carbondale, Illinois. Shout out to Carbondale.
Yeah.
They've been growing fireweed for years.
Wow. Okay. Salukis.
So they were
Southern Illinois. Yeah.
So they've
right
been
on.
actually
Shout out to
known
the
low key,
Salukis.
like they've been actually creating some now nationally known genetic lines.
Wow,
since
they've
the
been doing that
90s.
for a minute. I have heard that they got good bud down there. Yeah, okay.
So good weed, good music, and psychedelics enough to like open up the head for
Right.
me to see that there were other ways for life to work. you know?
Right.
And
right.
but once I had gotten back up here to St. Louis, and it was time for, I just lived life for a while, but then 2014 and 2015, whenever the legalization efforts started to actually get to the froth, it was
Okay.
possible for Missouri.
Okay.
Immediately I took my passion and my public speaking and my ability to organize and my passion for the plant, and I just laser sighted that on starting to do activism and organization work for the cannabis community.
That's what's up.
So it wasn't about an industry at that point. It was, at that point, we didn't get to talk about breaking the stigma, we didn't get to talk about social equity. We didn't get to talk about like minority inclusion. At that point, it was all about breaking the stigma. It was just
Right.
like trying to convince the public that we weren't criminals just for wanting to interact with the plant.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly. That was the whole emphasis. It's just like, just because I like this plant and I use this plant. Is this on Chris? You can be on Chris.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, you good. What is it? Just because we love this plant and we interact with this plant does not make us, thugs or criminals or whatever the hell else you think that, may be associated with this plant. That's not us. And the question to me though, that I always had with you, and I meant to ask you this last time, with the rural upbringing that you were raised in, number one, who was your confidant? Like, who did you go to when, like, you knew, people that were in your family, they loved you, but they weren't in your corners per se because of what you were? Who was the person that you went to that you can confide in?
That's kind of the complex thing of being multiracial, is that unless you're around other multiracial people, uniracial people are separate from the multiracial experience. Even me and my blackness and my black experience, at least we can share elements of that together. But there are pieces of the multiracial journey that are exclusive all to themselves. So,
Right.
in real honesty, there was not anyone to really reflect with, and so it's like, it wasn't until I got into the city and I was able to really bump up against other people that were either racially ambiguous. It's like, well, what you is, or it was, or just, connecting with other black people that had experienced part of their journey, or that I could just share part of my journey with.
Well, I got a question for you. As a mixed black man, what would you say would be the most misconception that people have or don't understand about living a mixed life?
That's a great question.
Yeah, well, I think that one of the biggest unseen things, and I kind of said it, is the privilege of being omniracial, the privilege of being one race, and being able to look in the mirror and knowing that you look like all of your ancestors. I don't get that, as much as culture will bring an element of exoticism to being multiracial, and people will admire that for its mystery or its difference. Indifference also means solitude in a way.
Right.
And so, as much as people would think that multiracial people exist and kind of get along everywhere, that's also because there are very few spaces that we feel whole. And that's just I think the depth of it, that we, even as multiracial people, haven't even had a space to talk about. So I appreciate you asking, because it's real. Like, I was when I started the cannabis organization stuff, I used the platform that I built for a concept for a consumption lounge for AIDS patients, HIV and AIDS patients, off of a structure that I built for a meetup group for multiracial people, and it was called Mixed Feelings.
Wow. Oh, that's tight.
I didn't come up with that name, but I was helping someone else that had come up with this name, and I
like that name.
Yeah. But so part of it was like, there's a psychology to how we can actually kind of like define these things and honor them and own them. And so fast forward, like I didn't have my color coming out until the murder of Michael Brown. You know, it wasn't until then that I wasn't able to embody my blackness in a positive way, because all my life the only parts of me whenever I was in rural America, the only parts of me that were the black parts were the quote unquote bad parts that they would tell me about. You know, that made me different. I wasn't there was no embodiment of kinghood for me in my blackness. You know? So it wasn't until I felt that we as a black community that I felt there's some element of suffering. And you know, living in rural America, I've heard more hard R's than a lot of my black brothers. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And they were meant on purpose to me. And so,
but and I want you to finish your point. But just to ask a quick question. So you did not feel black empowerment until the killing of Mike Brown?
Well, I didn't feel the need for me to face pieces of either my family or my community, or even maybe myself, that hadn't been able to embody my blackness for positive reasons.
Wow.
And I was like, this man was going to get some fucking Swisher Sweets. I'm sitting here smoking my weed, thinking about that. This brother just wanted to go fucking smoke his weed. And I'm thinking about the times that I've been targeted, that I've already been harassed. And I'm thinking about the amount of people that I know in my life that don't understand my journey. Let alone the people that are out here thinking about how they understand his. And I was mad. And that's when I had what I call my color coming out. It was like, guess what, family? I'm blackity black, black, black. And I don't know if you misconceived or preconceived, or if I did not make it clear. But my journey has never been unblack. And I was only told by people that loved me, that were around me when in my youth, that race didn't matter. But that's only because it didn't matter in their conception. It shouldn't matter, but it does. You know, so to tell people race doesn't matter is just gaslighting them. Because race matters every goddamn day.
Do you think
that is crazy?
Do you think that they were telling you that race didn't matter just because you were living from a biracial aspect, so you wouldn't feel like intimidated in certain spaces?
I think that's said specifically by the white community because it is a credo that they desire to live by. But that doesn't mean that it is happening in actuality. It's something to strive for, that race does not matter. It's like, but it should not matter, but it does. And so I think that it's well intended, which also leaves a lack of hands-on or a lack of responsibility. Because it's like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me.
Now,
it's like, well, the only reason you're saying that is kind of because it does matter. Otherwise, it wouldn't have even come up. You know?
Now, I know you were saying that was your black coming out moment. And I understand completely where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Did it ever get you to think back to any kind of instances in, like, let's say, like elementary school? Since like you say, since you went to a rural school, not ROTC.
Right.
You know, because we know how integrated that was.
Yeah.
But when you think back to elementary school status in rural Missouri, did you like think back, like, you know, maybe that might have been, and I wasn't really tripping off of it. You know what I'm saying?
Like which piece?
Like it may have been something racial there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Since I was a kid, I didn't really trip off of it the way I trip off of it now.
100%. I mean, in it happened in so many different ways. Like, I didn't know that when I was born, that I was put out by my mom. My white mother was put out of my grandma and grandpa's house because she had a colored baby. My grandpa said he wouldn't allow a colored baby in the house. Now, mind you, this is '87. Motherfuckers out here, we're still colored. You know what I'm saying? And but then my
and
grandma,
I'm glad you brought that up. I hate to interject real quick, but
no.
Because it's people we as black men, we've heard stories of things like that, but to actually speak with someone who lived through it, it's a completely different experience when you get a chance to see for someone who can speak on the fact that my mother was that white girl that we've heard about so many times that got treated like we saw on Jungle Fever. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I always talk about his reaction
Some real life shit,
to what he was.
Yeah,
what
let
she
him
did,
explain it.
You know?
Yeah, I never knew that my grandpa's brother that lived literally like an eighth of a mile down the road. Like, he didn't come down to the house because I was like, why does Grandpa always go up there to play cards? Like, why didn't Uncle Charles come down here? But like, he wouldn't even be around me type shit, you know? And so
because of you?
Yeah. Wow. But then my grandma was like, either that colored baby and our daughter stay in this house or we're all leaving. And I always like make the joke is I always thank Elvis Presley for that, because my grandma was obsessed with Elvis Presley, and Elvis was the blackest thing the white people had at that time.
Damn, that's so sad. Jesus.
And she was like, but she was just like,
true, though.
this is not the way it's going to be. And to fast forward, and how I said that living out there and having that life gave me a testimony of how you'll find love in places you wouldn't assume, is that by the end of that man's life, I was his favorite grandchild.
Right.
I carried his casket, to the grave, and I gave the eulogy at his funeral. I was actually with him in his last moments of death, and was able to work on him. I'm a massage therapist. I was able to work on him so that his last breaths were taken comfortably.
Wow.
So I was the last person, one of the last people he consciously saw.
And that's how God works.
Yes.
What made that happen, though? What made that change in yours, in your grandfather and yours relationship?
I think that it's the same thing that happens for most people. The same thing that can be related to the cannabis struggle is like one of these people of privilege, generally white people of some privilege, are out there speaking against something because they haven't experienced that firsthand. And then it comes into their world. Maybe their child has epilepsy, or maybe their sister has some sort of traumatic brain injury, and now they find out that
something that
cannabis
makes
is
it
the
hit
cure.
home.
Yeah, so something that makes it hit home, and I think that's it. Is that love is a beautiful thing, and it's mysterious, and I really think that that's the reason why there is a part of the population that exists like me, is to be part of that conduit and that healing of space. It's like Obama, he said something one time that really hit me, and he said that he would go out into these rural white communities, and he would see all these people that he would go to speak at like a town hall, and he would see all these people that looked back at him and they saw otherness. They looked at him and they saw something different. But when he looked at them, he saw his aunt, he saw his grandma or his cousin. He said, so I was able to look at them with a sense of love and familiarity, that even though they didn't see it in me, I saw it in them. And I was like, dude,
that's real.
It's like, damn,
that's real as shit.
It hit me deep.
I got a personal question for you. Okay, so I have two cousins. They're both mixed. They're the same as you, half Jewish, half African American. And there's one cousin that does not associate with her black side. She doesn't associate with us anymore. That's just how she does it. There's another one that fully embraces us, and that married these his brother's like Jamaican and some other Irish stuff in him. So he's real. So it's just like, my question: why is that? And I hate to just you can't. Can't speak for a whole for every mixed person.
Right, but
that's
I
bullshit.
also but I appreciate for real. It is a real space, and like I said, I will take the opportunity to speak about it because it is a new space. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate it.
And part of it is the illusion of dualism.
Yeah.
It's the idea that we've been and it's a bigger problem than just in race, but we have the idea of duality, and that there's a one and the other, or a good and a bad, a black and a white, and this team versus that team, Republican versus Democrat, like whatever it is. We put everything on the sliding scale of if it's left or right.
Right.
Whenever the world doesn't exist that way, we work in dimensions. This is a module space, and there are spikes and there are ebbs, and like we're all different in that space. And so I feel like many people on a multiracial journey end up putting themselves they're forced into the illusion of duality.
Wow.
And so they have to pick one or another based on one parameter or another.
It's like society makes them pick. What is it?
Well, I think part of it is societal, and it's like nature or nurture type thing, where it's like, yes, if you're nurtured in a way that allows you to explore that, then you're more likely to explore it. But it's like, for a lot of multiracial people, it's like, are you white passing or not? And this is like, if you're white passing, then that causes an entire different life experience than if you're not white passing. And so it's like,
it literally comes down to that. Did you hear did y'all just hear what this man just said? That is that is huge.
Explain the term white passing.
Jesus,
white passing.
Yes, and that's real.
Skipping your white part.
Well, white passing means that by cultural standards, this has happened even as a big thing in the 30s. Especially with like black and white photography, where it's like
it's been films about this. Passing is when it just came out with my girl, beautiful sister from Westworld. Oh, I love her. What?
That's like you just like you
sorry,
told
go
me.
ahead.
Let me.
Yeah.
Let me see.
No, you're good. But
There's
no,
been so many movies about this, books. Like,
yeah,
go ahead.
being white. It's so if culture has identified you, and you're generally it means
Tessa
that
Thompson,
you're-
sorry.
Generally, it means that you're that you're less melanated, enough so that your skin appears white. If you have enough features that allow you to go under the radar, because there was an entire campaign during the early part of indentured, or the late part of indentured servitude, in the time whenever Irish people had been freed from indentured
They
servitude.
love to bring up that we were slaves.
Right. Which was like, it was for like the smallest sliver out of a big sliver. Like the shit was fucked up. But what they did do after that is that they had this whole cultural campaign of comparing Irish people to black people. Y'all know about this?
Right.
So they would show like broad noses, and they would illustrate these things that showed that we culturally were subhuman compared to the pure European.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
Because
it's
the so-called leprechaun is
Wow.
the is it called the Timu people, which were black Irish, and Saint Patrick tried to kill us off.
You lie. That's where the leprechaun comes from? I tell you, where you get all knowledge
Yeah.
on this mother. Man, what in the world, man?
That's why you
Good
have learned something.
goodness.
There is a lot of there was a whole time whenever
Tiwa people,
were
I
figuring out-
I did not know about this black Irish thing,
Yeah,
man.
so for Irish and Italians, they were even figuring out how to be white passing. So it's like they didn't want to hold on to those parts that were keeping them from being this European
Right,
structure.
right.
And so more and more,
Especially Italians.
Yeah, they kept-
with my parts
so
of Italy they're from. Oh my
so
goodness.
it's like you find people, and so whenever you find, like, you look at like Fighting Irish, it's like Fighting Irish. You think about culturally, Irish and Italians are also like known for being scrappier and having more of like an urban influence on their culture, and part of that was by design, because culturally motherfuckers didn't want to give up their pride. Like, we didn't want to give up where the fuck we came from and what we did. And then so because of that, you had people that, like me, that were being mixed up in the middle.
Right.
And at a certain point it became, do you pass as white or do you not? You know what I'm saying? It's like, and so that became the biggest dividing piece, not just the one drop rule, but it's like, ain't nobody gonna talk about a one drop if you look white.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
And
let me
so-
ask you this real quick. Your reaction, your first reaction, thoughts, if you have seen the movie Imitation of Life.
Oh, there it is. Thank you. That's the other one I was thinking about. Yep.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Oh,
You need to see that.
Oh, Brennan,
Put
you
it
would
on the
love
list?
that movie.
Oh,
Yes,
all right.
yes. Watch that ASAP.
Wow.
I don't even want to tell you the story, but man, you will 100% understand that movie.
on.
That movie's a shit. Okay, my mother told me about that movie when I was little. Like, yeah,
That's a good movie.
like that movie is real as shit. But anyway, okay. So let me ask you this too. I'm gonna ask you two questions that lead to my point.
Yeah.
What you answered this already, but just to bring it back for myself and the listeners, you came to St. Louis from that rural area when you were high school or before high school?
Yeah, middle school, 8th grade.
Middle school, 8th grade.
Yeah.
What brought you here?
My stepdad moved up here he had been up here for work, and so finally, my mom uprooted, so we just came up here to be closer. He worked at Anheuser-Busch.
Right. Oh, okay, bet. So
So I was on
you
the
guys
south side
moved because of that AB.
8th grade on.
When you did that, was it a blessing, or did you want to stay what you knew?
No one wants to stay in rural Missouri.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll be real. That
You
at
never know,
first-
man.
Yeah, I mean, at first, it was abrasive. It was a nightmare. Like, I got in more fights in the beginning of my 8th grade year than I had gotten in my 5th, 6th, and 7th combined.
Believe it.
What school was you at for 8th grade?
Fanning, bro. Southside. I don't know anybody that knows anything about the Southside.
Fanny was hood as shit.
It was gutter, super
Yeah.
gutter.
Wow.
But I learned real quick. But yeah, so it was definitely a culture shock. You know what I'm saying? Because I went from being one of the only people of color in an entire school system, like literally, K through 12,
Yeah.
to being in the middle of a melting pot that had a whole different cultural dynamic.
Wow.
And I carried all of the cultural essence of the county. Like I remember, like they were like, nigga, you probably play tennis in those shoes for real. Like those look like tennis shoes for real.
Yeah. Hell
And I was
no.
like, oh shit.
And
But,
I was gonna say, did you gravitate more towards the white side at ROTC or the black side?
well,
No, this
in
is before OTC.
Well,
This
yeah,
is
I mean,
Fanny.
in honestly, in middle school when I first got here, I chilled mostly with the international kids.
I know that's right.
And,
I know that's right.
I was like, I'm just gonna,
Shit.
I gotta figure this out because I'm like having
Real.
a scrap because a lot of the white kids were like, man, I'm trying to be black. Let me hold on. Like, no, you're fucking up my groove right now. And they were just too worried about their fucking status that they couldn't be their authentic selves.
Right. And the international kids
And
was.
then and then a lot of the black kids were just trying to figure me out because it was just like that's the nature of it. Is I carried a lot of the privileges of the oppressor, and that's part of what I learned. The difference between racism and prejudice. You know, it's like one breeds the other. You know, it's like when I got into the city, most of the things that got me in a lot of the fights were because kids were coming at me for things that either they thought I had or that they knew I had that they didn't. And it all came down to I thought I was better than them. Whenever I was in the country, though, they thought they were better than me.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
The racism was these people saw me and they said, oh, I can talk to him because that's what he is. I can talk down to him. All my American apple pie heritage has told me this is what we do as a family. This is pride. While the folks in the city, they were just doing that because they thought I thought that way. They thought that, and because they had been at the receiving end of that type of mentality, they're like, man, you sus. You out. Nigga, you wearing tennis shoes, bro.
That mentality right there of the poor thinking of the rural person compared to the poor thinking of the inner city person is just fucking amazing. You're both at the same level, literally, but because of where we live in this country and society, you think that you're this, but you're not, and you think that you're this, and you're fucking not. It's
they thought they were.
It's just crazy to
Thought
me.
they were better than me.
Like,
and
good
the black
God.
folks thought that I thought I was better than them, which I
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
I get that. Like I could look at that and be like, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Right.
Now I can reflect through that, and any type of scrap I've ever gotten with a black person over my race, which is none now.
Right.
But all through high school, through grade school, I can reflect back and I can see every time. Like one dude said that my mom looked like a slave trader. No, I mean I threw hands on that dude.
Oh,
don't
fuck
get me wrong.
yeah. What the
But
fuck?
looking back, he was literally saying my mom carried the face of the oppressor.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like he's
yeah.
saying I'm triggered the fuck off just by
Yeah,
seeing her right now, wearing that hat with that coat.
But you don't have that. You don't have
I was
that
gonna say,
nuance.
was he Joning?
Oh, he was Jonah.
So y'all were going back and forth.
Oh, well, I mean, after that, it was no, like...
But yeah, when he said that y'all was trying to
and
fight,
she came,
yeah.
like, she had literally come in the room. And, like,
Yeah.
she left, and he said something about it. I was like, oh, pff,
Oh wow.
this
yeah.
is
But
it
before
now.
that, y'all was Jonah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's fucked up. Okay, so
We're
that
cool now, by the way.
but you're not gonna have that nuance, you know, as a kid. You're gonna figure that out when you get grown. Hopefully,
Yeah, I can
A lot of
reflect
people
back,
don't.
and I can see it. And it's
Yeah.
like, the people that... There was a certain amount of people that talked down to me.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people that talked at me.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's a whole difference in that mentality.
Right. Okay, so those questions lead me to this. Do you think if you stayed in rural and your stepdad didn't take that job with AB, would you be the same Brennan, or would you know, what's the deal?
No way. You know, it's like part of it that I was able to completely rebuild my connection with black culture. You know, it's like, I didn't know that there was the reason that I liked the Goofy movies because fucking Tevin Campbell was the shit. I didn't know that. I was just naturally tapped in.
Tevin Campbell what did he do with Goofy?
In a Goofy movie, he was Powerline.
He was
You know,
power.
he's too young.
I'm too you mean too old.
Yeah, this 90s,
Right.
90s,
Yeah.
I was an early 90s kid. And
Look
so
at,
there were
man,
parts
look at
of-
these little older 80s baby. He's saying
there were parts
it.
of culture that I was like, I didn't realize that I was relating in a way, even at a deep level. And once I got, once I was,
you didn't even know.
yeah, and then once, and I had a godbrother.
Y'all
that-
think he don't know? I have no idea what the fuck y'all talking.
Right, right. That's why he was quiet as hell.
I'm sitting there trying to
You know
figure
who
out like
Tevin Campbell
Goofy
is,
had a
though, right?
movie.
Yeah, Goofy
know-
did have a movie.
You know who
First
Tevin
Goofy
Campbell
movie
is.
came out in '94.
Yeah, no, I
I
didn't
know.
see that.
I was.
These 90s babies done. I'm an 80s baby. You a 70s
I'm
baby.
a
We
80s
have
baby.
no clue.
Hey.
You are a
No,
70s
you're a
baby.
90s
And the
baby.
soundtrack slaps.
You're not going to take this good conversation off the rails with that bullshit. Anyways, but yeah.
Yes, but yeah, so
Yeah,
I
so-
was able to reconnect. I had my godbrother. Shout out to my
You was
godbrother.
born in
to
'88?
The Johnson family.
Damn.
I
graduated
had a
high
godbrother
school
that
in
ended up living with me from sophomore year on.
Yeah.
That he had his own struggles, and
Right.
so his family was having a hard time. He moved in with me, and
That's a very
through that,
heavy cut.
he was able to just like see the parts that he's like, oh man, I see what you missed here. Like,
Hold up, man. Y'all gonna have your own show? Like, what the what the fuck?
He got this ugly cup over
He
there.
gonna have his own show on a goddamn cup.
What's
All
up,
right, my bad. Go ahead,
No,
Brennan.
you're good, man.
He talking,
No.
man.
So my wife and I were just talking about this the other day. We were at a place down on in Carondelet called Wine Down, a new black-owned wine and culinary place down there. It's super fine.
Ooh, say it again. What's his name?
Wine Down.
Wine Down
Yeah.
over where?
It's a South Carondelet neighborhood.
South Carondelet, South
Yeah.
Side. Wine Down,
Yeah.
black owned.
Yeah, black owned,
Oh,
and I walked
snap.
in,
Okay.
and they had
I
just
shout
like
them out.
Stevie going back to back, and then they had 5 Heartbeats on the TV.
Oh.
And I was just like, oh man, I'm sold. Right?
Yeah, right.
But-
Stevie back to back. Yeah, I'm there.
and the 5 Heartbeats on the TV.
Yeah,
but
like-
those are all things that had
Can't
to
be-
be brought back to me, and when I was 15.
Yeah.
And then what was cool though is that my godbrother, he was like, show me the most country shit that you've got. Like, bring it on. Like, what's
Yeah.
the most, like, give it to me. Because
Yeah,
he's like, I
yeah.
want to know what else is out there type shit. And so,
this your god brother. I'm sorry because there was a conversation going on.
That's all right, yeah,
he
yeah.
was living with you there. Okay.
he was living with me on the south side.
on the south side.
This is in
okay.
high school.
Yeah.
And so I was able, and he was he and his family, they lived on the north side at the time. They were having some life struggles.
Right.
And immediately I was like, he's coming with me. You know, he's got to move in with me.
Okay.
Because we were just that tight, that fast.
Bad.
That was my brother. You know,
Yeah.
so he is my brother. But yeah, so
Yeah.
we but he was the one that dropped me in on, like, he saw the gaps, and he was like, I'm gonna give you Tevin Campbell, you give me Tim McGraw. Like, let's do this shit.
okay. Because it's you south side, but it's high school, but you still on the country shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I had come from it. I knew enough of it.
Right.
like, I had known-
right. Good game.
I
Good
had
call.
brought up, you know, and it was an analog life out there because I
Yeah.
lived with my grandma and grandpa. So even though it was the 90s, whenever my parents got their own house in like maybe the mid 90s, but we were at first I was raised with my grandparents that had like a push button TV. My grandpa listened to 8-tracks, you know, like old country shit.
Yeah.
And my grandpa was a tinkerer and like a folk singer and player and stuff. You know, he'd like make his own instruments and shit.
Wow.
So I know like some very folky country shit.
And
You know.
in the 90s. Wow.
Yeah,
Did
so-
you,
I
did
feel
he ever
you.
try to hit you with a here's a Charlie Pride?
No,
Right, they should have. They should have.
definitely didn't.
Damn.
Yeah, that was the bad part.
But yeah, so it
Man.
definitely, like, you know, it's been a journey, and it definitely, all of those pieces really did help build me to be dynamic enough that right now the corporate cannabis industry is it's competitive, it's volatile, it's still very white, and part of that has to be talked about,
Right.
and it has to be done with a tact of calling people in
Right.
instead of calling them out.
Right.
And that's something that, you know, my broad life experiences gives me an ability to do where
Right.
some other black folks have to put up their hands and walk away. And I understand because they're like, I ain't even gonna fuck with this anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get it, I understand. And
Yeah.
fortunately, I've been built with enough experience and resilience through my life path, and enough tact because I understand a lot of these people more, that I know how to at least keep people at the table.
Yeah.
You know, and
Right.
like that's what has to happen this next wave whenever we're going for legalization right now, is that, like, regardless of what it looks like, we can't get stuck in that dualistic perspective of right and wrong.
Right.
If this is too white or too black, like, we have to be able to stay in a place of keeping people all at the round table.
Definitely.
You know what
definitely.
I'm saying? And so
And the vote is coming up November. When is it? I think it's November 3rd. Is that anybody know where the vote? I'm gonna promote the shit out of that on this show. If anybody could look that up, isn't it November? Do you know when the vote is? Because we literally can vote on recreational this November. Okay, so we're gonna promote the shit out of that on High Off the Glass. Make sure you guys go vote early November. Please go vote. We have to have rec and medical legal in the state of Missouri, and we can vote on this November. Make sure y'all vote. Okay, so let's bring it full circle. Let's bring it to right now. Why do you think that? Well, we know that why it happens. Why, you know, some black folks that are in the corporate side of cannabis, they throw their hands up and say "fuck it" and get out. But that is designed for them to do that. How can you withstand that and keep going?
part of it is in collaboration and not competition.
There
We
it is.
can't feel intimidated whenever we see another person of color coming to the table with a similar idea or with a similar concept.
Yes, sir.
Y'all better coagulate and cohese, because
Word.
there are not enough of us out here.
Word.
I was just gonna say before he said that, do you feel that, as far as when you say
Shit, yeah.
keep being able to still, withstand roadblocks or people throwing their hands up or being able to still keep people at the table? Do you feel that's where your debate skills come in at, as far as being able to, knowing somebody is, trying to dodge or just not being receptive, knowing what kind of questions to ask them and different kind of ways to, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, certainly. That's one of the things that I committed to back in I guess it was back in early April this year, or February. I did what was called the Pathways to Power. It was a debate that I hosted online, a debate in town hall, where folks could chime in, ask questions online to some of the leading cannabis legalization initiatives. And I did it, I intentionally structured it in a way so that whenever, people felt like I was calling them in and not calling them out, right? I was able to get them to come to the table even though they knew that they had adversarial ideas about certain things, to know that specifically my goal was creating transparency for the minority community, specifically black and brown people that are interested in voting and getting into the industry.
There it is.
Because it's like, if you say that you're advocating for real change, if you're saying that this should be good for all parties and you advocate for social equity, then you should be able to get on television and talk about the points that make that a thing, right?
Right.
And so they did that, and I was able to do it in a way that kept both parties comfortable. I still kept their feet to the fire.
Yes,
I didn't pull a punch.
Right.
But I just made sure that I followed everybody followed the rules, and it was very sportly. So whenever they got done, both of them felt heard. They both felt challenged. And they were both ready to do it again.
Now, when was this and where was this?
This was in February. I did it online.
Oh, wow.
It was called Pathways to Power. You should still be able to look it up by pathwaystopower.com.
Pathways to Power. You did it back in February, and you had who'd you have on again?
John Payne. He's a spokesperson and one of the directors for Legal Missouri.
Okay.
And then I had Eric McSwain, who is the director for Fair Access Missouri.
Okay.
Yep. And then I cross-examined the whole thing. I had my own questions for both of them, and then they had some time to cross-examine each other.
But they're for the same thing, right?
No.
Wait, Legal Missouri is they're for the legalization of cannabis?
I mean, here's the thing. Everybody is for the same thing, that they all want legalization. And so that in some ways that has been used, that is almost I've seen it play out as like a philosophical Socratic thing, where people are like, well, we all want the same thing. Yeah. And the person that I'm mocking knows who, if they see this, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I've heard these people say this, that are, I'm going to abbreviate. The biggest piece is that even though everybody wants it to be legal, it's a matter of like how the chips fall. It's like, where does it go and who benefits? Where does the money go?
Right.
Who has regulation over it? Right. How many people are who actually qualifies to get out of jail, and when and how? Who actually qualifies to get into the industry? What type of social equity provisions are put in? Who actually benefits from those? Who's going to protect it? So those are the questions that I ask to Fair Access Missouri, that I ask to Legal Missouri, to the group for House Bill 2704. I drove to the state capitol and I spoke in support of another piece of state legislation that had nothing to do with vote. And this is something I'm going to say real quick, is that there's something really, law happens in different ways. It all doesn't happen the same way. We can vote for something that has been put on the ballot. That happens through an entity gathering enough signatures from the public saying, we want this as a voting issue in the next election.
Correct. Which we've had for rec to be legal.
Right. And so that's also how we got we got medical.
Thank you, Chris.
That's how we got medical. And so that can be privatized in a lot of different ways. Anyone can start that. It can be a corporation, it can be an organization, it can be an individual, it can be a lobbyist, exactly. So not all paths to Valhalla are equal for all parties, right?
Right.
So
who has who has the idea that's equal for all parties? Or the one that's for that includes us?
Well, I mean, they all do to a certain degree, and none of them I'm completely happy with.
Wow.
And I've made that
I love that you're keeping it real.
I've made that very clear. It's like one of the biggest things that you don't hear about from Legal Missouri is they don't even use the buzzword social equity. They talk about their expungement program, but they don't talk much about black and brown struggle. They don't talk about what black business empowerment looks like. because it's not really a focus of the program.
Right.
You know,
right.
and there are pieces in there that there's a portion of a portion that will be divvied out for a portion of us.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of other models, there are a lot of ways it could have been done. And their biggest answer to me, and it continues to be, this is what is most likely to pass. So what they've done is that they've created a piece of language that, even though it's not perfect, even though that there are that I have scrutiny with it, that other people do, they're doing it because they feel like in this state that this is the way they're going to get it to pass. So at the expense of whatever parameter, at the expense of opening up more licensing to black and brown people, at the expense of putting strange parameters like a 3-pound limit on expungement, those are some of the biggest things that I've had in scrutiny of the Legal Missouri campaign.
Wow.
They will try to get this to pass. And so then we'll be left with another realm of a new normal, but we'll still have work to do.
Yeah.
And my job is not to call them out for the problems, but it's to call them in as much as possible to how we can continue to create solutions in a diplomatic way.
Right.
Because they've made it clear that it's not going to look exactly how I want it to look. And
That's
how we
bullshit.
well, I mean, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
I think, and you know what?
But if you
Go
can
ahead.
if you can come up with another alternative avenue for them to use, which may be an offshoot of what you were asking for from the beginning part, then it's like, okay, now we got another thing that we've got them to agree on. Like you say, just real small steps. I got to get another part for them to agree on.
It seems like they're pushing back on agreeing on stuff that
so-
he wants done. That's the
Well,
problem.
a lot of this was done before I had involvement, right? So it's like a lot of these things that are put into to the written piece.
Right.
You know, by the time I had a real say, I was swimming upstream.
Right.
right.
So you
but-
got to try to find a loophole.
Yeah.
Well, and you have got to continue to build. Like, what does it look like after? You know, like
Right.
if I know, like, I'm not going to sit here and tell them and champion something that I think has flaws. I'm not going to counter them with some sort of militaristic campaign.
Right.
I've got to be ready for what it looks like because I play chess, not checkers. I got to be
Right.
ready for what it looks like whenever they get that to pass.
Right.
What is the next step then?
Yeah.
What is the
what
next
adjustment
move?
can be made off that?
Yeah,
Right.
and it's like you said, it's like, yeah, it's not going to be a thing of them rewriting this piece because it's already written. That's part of the qualm is that they're making amendments to our Constitution. Instead of it being a piece of flexible language that was put through the state legislature, they're putting anchor-driven amendments in our Constitution that are more difficult to change. And that's what I was saying, is that there's more than one way to create a law. So you can go the petitioning and signature-taking route, and then we vote.
Right.
Or you can go the route of going straight through the state legislature by rallying your senators to create a House bill that then gets moved to the governor's desk after it's been approved through the different levels of state government for the governor to sign. And that can or could, in certain situations, be a more advantageous route because that language is easier to pull back apart and rebuild and shit like that.
Right.
But the problem with cannabis law is that we are in a red state, and there's a lot of concern over them just knocking it off the table every time that it comes through until it looks exactly how they want it to. And that does end up being a thing.
Okay.
I watched it happen. I drove to the state. I spoke in advocacy for a House bill
Right.
that needed to be up for discussion.
Right.
And I also watched it get shoved off the table because they're like, no, this is not for us right now. We don't have to.
Right.
And like I said, it's a chess game. So it's like I knew when I walked in, I had quote unquote allies on both sides of the aisle. I didn't know when I walked in it was going to be some ally versus op energy.
Wow.
But it was the Legal Missouri campaign plus MoCan Trade Association
Oh yeah.
up against House Bill 2704 and all like a bunch of patients that were testifying and a lot more of like a community base of advocacy on this side, and with some corporate advocacy. But
What
it was
was
very
the
clear.
disagreement? What was the disagreement?
Well, the biggest disagreement is that the 2704 is trying to push through a piece of state legislature to get the governor to sign right before Legal Missouri gets past the finish line for us to vote in November. So House Bill 2704 is trying to like bypass them,
Right.
beat them.
Oh,
to
and
the
just
finish
have
line.
the governor sign it so it could be law, And that thing must be crap. What is that?
Well, it's a lot. I think like the law is what they would call like we're calling an omnibus because it is a piecemeal of a lot of other pieces of language that have been proposed at the state level before.
Okay.
And to a lot of the legislators, it was overwhelming. It was too much.
Wow.
Because it was too much because they were giving too much flexibility and freedom.
Okay.
I mean, basically, there would have been regulation.
Yeah.
There was a lot of regulation put in there,
Yeah.
but it would have taken all the wind out of the corporate market sales because the top donors to Legal Missouri have all given over $25,000 a piece. There are over 15 of those
Jesus.
companies, and that was as of April.
Right.
So they got a lot of money in.
Legal Missouri sounds like a straight up lobbyist now. Then.
Well, I mean, here's the deal: is that like
Shit.
it's that they have a lot. You've got a lot of folks, whether they be local or whether they be multi-state operating, and they found their Missourian. You got people that have put in a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
And to ask them to put through another piece of language that doesn't ensure that they get their money back is asking a whole fucking lot.
Right.
So I don't even take it personally that they're looking at this piece of language and they're saying, no. This is all of my assets are going to be ruined.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to get my money back.
Right.
And so there's an element where they're in, a lot of them are, and some of them have done that by choice. Like some of them, yes, it's a strategic move. They know that they're flexing to keep their space.
Right.
A lot of them are also just trying to hold on to what they've already put in and haven't gotten back on, And so so it's more complicated than just, like I said, it's more complicated than duality.
It is. It's very complex. Good God, that shit is deep. Who wrote this current legislation that we're going to vote on November 8th?
Well, it was a board of people that oversaw the language, and they had input from organizations across the country.
Okay.
They had input from normal directors. They had input from the at the time some of the national admins for.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, for minorities for medical marijuana from my organization.
Okay.
So they had a lot of input.
Good.
From it wasn't an unthought piece of language.
I was just about to say on that excuse me, on that board, any minority representation.
Yes, and it's complicated. There was more, and then there was less. Some the people did leave the conversation. I was not part of it, so I can't speak to any part of that. The only thing that I can say is, if I would have had a seat at the table, I would not have rolled over so easy. Whenever I had conversations with some of the black representation that was in the room,
right,
I was getting a lot of comfortable civil rights era style philosophy of like, we got to take this a bite at a time. We couldn't sit and have a milkshake.
Yeah.
Y'all need to.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So there was an element of like a tone deafness because,
of course,
to some of these folks, they've been there, done that,
right.
And so in the overarch of their life and what they're going to see, they're like,
man,
this is good enough. Basically,
that is so crazy. You know what? This was such a good episode. We couldn't even get to the fun shit. You know what I'm saying? This straight knowledge that was being dropped by Brennan IS. Before we get out of here, man, tell these folks real quick. I don't want to gloss over this too, and I got to mention it. My man works for St. Louis University, y'all. He's literally a professor and teaches cannabis. Tell the folks about that, man.
Yeah, my students actually get to enrollment starts, or excuse me, not enrollment. Class is open tomorrow. So I've been working basically since the spring on preparing for the course, studying the syllabus. I got sent, it was wild, but St. Louis University sent me, they're like, all right, congratulations, we're going to send you your curriculum and your textbooks and your grow kit. And I was like,
wow,
pinch me. I've got the Jesuit Catholics
sending
me
crazy. That is crazy.
Something. But yeah, so
oh my god.
Yeah, so I start teaching there tomorrow. It's an 8-week course.
Yeah.
It's called Cannabis Science and Operations.
Right.
And I'm the fundamental class instructor. There are well over 10 instructors in the entire program.
Yeah.
So it's it's definitely going to be a new chapter for me, and it's been cool to read the curriculum and get into it because so much of it is familiar and natural to me.
Yeah.
But I'm also learning a lot,
Right.
real fast.
Right.
Does that go to a degree or a certificate?
Talking to the mic.
So
Talk to the mic.
it's a certificate program. Yeah, it's in their master's program.
All right, okay.
This is so amazing. We got this man. We got Jeff Roush. We got different folks. We have real people, y'all, that are involved in cannabis on an everyday basis, actually getting it done and teaching. I don't know about cannabis and how it can be 100% legal in the state of Missouri. I mean, it's this ain't just people sitting on the street smoking blunts. It's a whole industry and like shit is getting done. So. This is amazing what you're doing, Brennan. I'm so glad you were able to come on here and take the time to do this. You literally have class starting tomorrow, but you took the time. I appreciate that. When is the next? This also, I know. Also, this gentleman and I, we have an event coming up pretty soon, but that is going to be in the future. We're going to talk to you all about that. When is your next event coming up?
Next event is this Friday. We've got the Best Medicine, Cannabis, and Comedy Showcase.
Oh, this Friday?
Yep.
Where's it at?
Excuse me, you can find that. It's down on Washington Avenue.
Okay.
You can go to tinyurl.com/bstmed to get the tickets.
There it is. Yo, it's not Puff Painted Pass. It's going to be, say it one more time.
Oh, Best Medicine, comedy and cannabis.
You guys want to get some comedy, you want to smoke, you know what I'm saying? You want to laugh and blow at the same time. You come out to this man's event. It's going to be awesome. Give them one more time where they can get the tickets.
tinyurl.com/bstmed.
There it is. Yo, for Coach Hill, for Chris the Grower, Brennan England, thank you, brother, for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
This is Old and Great. I am about to get out of here. Make sure y'all stay tuned for Conversations with Cole coming up next. It's gonna be dope. A lot of knowledge today, y'all. Peace out. We out. There it is. Woo. That